Hello. I cannot stress how low my low power mode has been the last couple of weeks. And so I figured, what better way to celebrate how low power we've been than instead of actually reading the 90 something books that I have unread on my TBR, we instead categorize them. Hello, my name is Meekela, it's Meekela Reads, I live here, and today we are going to be tier ranking my TBR. I have here with me Little Screen, who is going to do little screen things down here, so bear with me if I am not looking directly at you. And if you hear anything that sounds like it's taking off, it's Little Screen, because she cannot regulate her temperature properly. I'm sure you've seen these, I'm sure you know how they work. We sit here and we rank in 5 categories all of the books that I haven't read, that I physically own. This is going to be a learning experience for you and for me. I've never done the tier ranking thing before, so this will be fun. But also, given the fact that I'm just avoiding actually reading any of the books on my TBR, this is going to help me figure out which books I may not gravitate towards typically, but also I'm hoping this is going to be doubly beneficial because you'll just be entertained by the somewhat feelings of shame I have about how long some of these books have sat on this TBR for. So let's just rank them, shall we? You can see here my 5 tiers that I have range from inject this straight into my veins all the way down to this will sit on my TBR for over a decade, which I'm ashamed to say has happened in the past. These are the tiers, and then these are all of the books that I currently have on my physically unread TBR. As far as I know, I'm pretty sure I've got all of them. So given that there's 90 something books here to talk about, let's just jump into it. First is A Closed and Common Orbit by Becky Chambers. I'm going to put this one just in Keen because I've already started reading it once before. I wasn't super into it. I think it's going to be good, but like, I don't know. I do love Becky Chambers now more than I did before, so it could still be good. Off the bat, I'm going to say most of the Robin Hobbs, I think, are going to end up in I'll get to it when I get to it, simply because there's so many of them and it's a commitment to actually start any of Robin Hobbs' books. So Assassin's Apprentice is kicking us off with that one. A Magic Steeped in Poison, I'm keen. I think I was genuinely kind of excited, but then it's been a long time since I bought it, and so the hype has worn off for me. These are the Avatar graphic novels, and I think I'm going to put them in I get to it when I get to it, because I'm not sure I have all of the right ones I need. Babel by R.F. Kuang, controversially, is gonna be I'll get to it when I get to it. I feel like I could move it up to Keen, but I think I will keep it in I'll get to it when I get to it, just because I've heard such mixed reviews about it. I'm just not sure. The BTS book, I'm torn between genuinely kind of excited and keen. I'm gonna put it in Keen just because I'm unsure. Definitely them going to the military has reduced the hype bandwagon there. As an aside, also, last year I went through every single book that I had on my physical TBR at that stage and actually described what these books are about for some of them. So if you're like, what is that book that she's talking about and why isn't she telling us what it's about? Maybe check out that video, because I haven't actually read as many books off of my TBR from last year as I thought I had. Culprit number 1 for this is definitely the Book of Immortality, which will be the first to sit in the category of this will sit on my TBR for a decade, because it has sat on my TBR for a decade. And I might unhaul it, I may not. I'm not sure. I'm still skeptical about that one. Burn by Patrick Ness, I'm keen. I like Patrick Ness's writing. His stories are weird, but I typically like them. Dating Dr. Dill. This is, I'm gonna say inject it straight into my veins. People who don't typically like romances have told me they like this, so I'm trusting in the voice of the people, and it is one of the books that I have to steer myself away from every time I go to pick a book from the TBR, because I don't have that many romances and I want to save it. Daughter of Smoke and Bone, I would say has been sitting on my TBR for a very long time, but I'm going to put it in that I'll get to it when I get to a category because of that reason. It's very popular, I hear it's very good, I've read other Lady Taylors, I liked them. It's just a common theme that you'll find in this TBR is that fantasy series scare me. I love them, I do, but committing to a series, a fantasy series at that, is a lot for me at the moment. Alright, Dress Your Family in Corduroy and Denim. I'm genuinely kind of excited for this one. It's a book that I found secondhand at the bookstore. I've never heard anyone talk about it before, and it seemed interesting. The first 4 Earthsea books I am bumping up to Keen only because Jared has read them and he's told me that they're very, very good and I should read them. And I have them ready to go, but again, fantasy series scare me. Check and Mate, I have recent intel is not great. So we're gonna bump her down just to keen. I'm not a YA fan. I want to check it out because I do like the whole chess premise and I do like Ali Hazelwood, so I'm still gonna try, but I've heard she's not great. Terry Pratchett's The Colour of Magic is the first in the Discworld series, and I don't know if you know this, but there's a very long fantasy series. You will notice I have placed it in the genuinely kind of excited pile. That decision is purely driven by this absolutely stunning edition I have of the book, and if I like it and I get into this series, I will have a whole collection of these gorgeously stunning books. And I bought it recently, so the hype is still real. The instant gratification is still floating around. The dopamine is still there. All right, Avatar: The Dawn of Yang Chen. I actually bought this for Jared to read and he didn't want to, so now it's mine, and so I'm putting it in. I'll get to it when I get to it. But Divine Rivals, I'm gonna genuinely inject that one straight into my veins because I'm so here for the romantasy, but also those like little dark academia romancy type books. I need something that I'm gonna like. She's high up on the list. Once again, Robin Hobb, heading into the I'll get to it when I get to it category because I will get to it when I get to it. Similarly, Frankenstein, but I'm actually gonna put this one on. It could sit on my TBR for a decade because classics are not my jam usually. It does look very nice though with my collection of Penguin books that I have currently. Eliza and Her Monsters, I'll get to it when I get to it. I started to listen to this one, but it is quite heavily reliant on some of the pictures that are in the physical book itself, and I didn't realize that until I started listening to it a couple of years ago. And so then it made its way back onto my physical TBR to read, and I just haven't prioritized it. And again, knowing that it's a YA, it's just feeling like I may not like it and I'm scared. I'm just gonna move some of these down. We're just gonna have some pictures in here that we don't need, and we're gonna have to live with that. I'm so sorry. Okie dokie. Graceling, again, another fantasy series that has several books in it. I'm gonna say keen. I'm keen for it. How Do You Live? Ooh, I don't know how to rate this one. Since seeing the movie, I don't know how to rate you. Let's put you in keen. I think I'm leaning more towards I'll get to it when I get to it, but if I put it in the keen category, then I'm more likely to pick it up. If I can convince myself into wanting to read it, I'll read it. Jade City is another I'll get to it when I get to it. Everyone raves about it, but some people didn't like it, and I'm heavily influenced by my peers. Haruki Murakami will probably sit on my TBR for a decade. This one's Kafka on the Shore. I have a few Murakamis in here. I do like his writing sometimes, but I think this was one of those ones where BookTube influenced me to pick up some Murakami, and I may not mesh well with Murakami as much as I want to. Jonathan Strange and Mr. Norrell. I think I'm just keen for it. I could be genuinely kind of excited if it wasn't as long as it is. Hidden Valley Road, I'm genuinely kind of excited for. Because it's a non-fiction about schizophrenia, and that is just crack to my brain. I love a good mental health book. Similarly with Ava Evergreen, I know I've been saying that middle grades and young adults are not my jam, but if you make it witchy, and cozy, I will want to read it. Magician, again. Fantasy series that are stupidly long scare me. And same with Robin Hobb. Which ones? These ones are the actually no, I'm putting the mad ship ones in keen. I think because I know a bit more about the synopsis for them, and like, who doesn't want to read about sentient ships? I want to read about sentient ships. This current layout is kind of what I thought would happen, having it be a bit like a bell curve. It's very expected thus far. Also, you should comment down below after looking at my physical TBR which book I should start next, which one you think that I should prioritize, because I'm indecisive, particularly when my brain is in low power mode. There is no space for decision making up here, so I'd very much appreciate if you helped me make my decisions about my TBR. Please and thanks. Picture of Dorian Gray. I'll get to it when I get to it. I think I'm a bit more intrigued by the story for this one than any other classics, but we will see. Bloodmarked. Genuinely kind of excited. It would be injected straight into my veins, but I read Legendborn a long time ago, so I need to reread that before I read Bloodmarked, because I don't remember anything that happens, but I remember loving Legendborn. Shadow's Edge could sit on my TBR for a decade, potentially. I think I read the first one like 5 years ago. Again, fantasy series. I enjoyed Brent Weeks' other fantasy series that he wrote, the Black Prism series, but the Night Angel trilogy just didn't grab me after the first one. It was a bit of a slog to get through. I have genuinely considered unhauling the series, and after this video I might. The Frugal Wizard's Handbook for Surviving Medieval England. Inject this straight into my veins. I'm so excited. I loved Tress the Emerald Sea. I am currently listening to Mistborn and Brandon Sanderson. I just love how he writes. Slightly unpopular opinion, I think I'm gonna put the second Emily Wilde in just into genuinely kind of excited. It is a new release. I did purchase it this year. The dopamine is still high, but the fact that the first Emily Wilde was so slow to start with, and the experience I had reading that, I loved the end, but the start just dragged. So I'm hesitant to jump full force into that one. Secret History by Donna Tartt. I'm gonna put you with Keen. I do like Dark Academias, but I think I'm liking them less and less as time goes on. The Old Kingdom Chronicles by Garth Nix has sat on my TBR for about 16 years. And I don't know why. Like, it's not any bigger or more complex than any of the other fantasy series that I own. I think it's just that the book itself is so physically large. It's unwieldy and it's intimidating. It just is intimidating. It's an intimidating book for me to jump into, and I think I've built it up in my head. Also, The Ruby Circle, which is the last book in the Bloodlines series. That one hasn't been on there for as long, but it's probably coming close to a decade at this point. Time Siege and Time Salvager. You can't see the picture here very well, but I will get to it when I get to it. I was gifted the series, I just haven't had the hype in my brain just yet. Unmasking Autism, I am genuinely kind of excited about. A non-fiction that helps me to grow my brain. I'm very excited. Similarly, actually as well, to Serpent and Dove. Not because it's a non-fiction, because it's definitely not, but it was kind of circulating in that realm of, after reading A Court of Thorns and Roses for the first time, what do I go to? Like that whole TikTok realm. And I only have the first one, so it's not a full series, and so it's not as intimidating. Soul's Reckoning. I will get to when I get to. Oh, we've gone too big. Hang on, let me just make these squares so that we can see. Am I an IT genius? I think so. The Ballad of Songbirds and Snakes. I'll get to it when I get to it. I'm not overly keen to read it. Honestly, I just want to read it so I can watch the movie. The Gilded Wolves. I don't know how to feel about this one because I bought it for a certain video that I was going to do and I never read it. I have another video that I kind of want to read it for, but I'm not overly keen on the idea of the book itself. But I have heard good things and I do have an idea, so we'll put it in the I'll get to it when I get to it category, and I will get to it when I get to it. Icebreaker is going straight up into the inject it straight into my veins category. In my low power mode that I've been living in for the last 2 to 3 weeks, I have fallen into the hockey smart realm and I never want to leave. I'm on my 3rd Elle Kennedy of the month. I'm somewhat ashamed to say that I'm having a good time. The Atlas 6, this book feels like it's had its day. Like it feels like I'm so far behind on the times for it that is there much point really in reading it anymore. For that reason, I'm going to put it in the I'll get to it when I get to it category, and look, if I don't get to it, I'm not going to be mad about it. The Witch graphic novels, when I get my hands on them, are straight in my veins. It's a nostalgia thing. No one else will really probably enjoy them unless you also grew up watching and reading them. But when I get my hands on those graphic novels, oh boy, I will be doing nothing else that day. The Girl Who Fell Beneath the Sea. This is probably one that I'm going to put in the keen category. Remember when I said I was an IT genius? We're gonna have to do the squares. I'm so sorry. The Girl Who Fell Beneath the Sea was, to be honest, an aesthetic cover purchase. I'm still excited to get to it though. The premise does sound interesting. The Lies of Loch Lamora by Scott Lynch. I'm keen. I bought this in 2016. Still haven't read it. Watch Over Me by Nina LaCour. This is a cool cover, and I have this cover, and I love it, and I'm genuinely kind of excited to read this one. The Mistborn trilogy, similarly, genuinely kind of excited, and I'm putting that there because I'm currently listening to the first one. Previously stated Murakami. This is Norwegian Wood. It's going in there. Could sit there for a decade, but we don't know. We don't know. 6 Crimson Cranes. I'm gonna put this in the genuinely kind of excited category as well, purely because I was planning on buddy reading this one. And I don't know where that's at. I don't know if I'm going to do that, but if I do, I'm very excited. The Sound of a Wild Snail Eating. I'm gonna put it in keen. I bought it for a video. We'll get there. The video is coming. Ooh, these Violent Delights. I feel like this one was also kind of rocking around TikTok at the time when Serpent and Dove also had its moment. I know there's quite a few of them out. I don't know how I feel about this one. Part of me wants to put it in Keen, but I think I'm gonna put it in I'll get to it when I get to it. Assistant to the Villain I've already read, so we're just gonna put her down here somewhere. Another Murakami, as we know. Zen and the Art of Motorcycle Maintenance. This is one that I'm keen for. I had a housemate once that read this and she loved it, and actually a few people that I know have read this and really, really enjoyed it. It's not one that I'm like genuinely excited for because I don't know exactly like what realm or what camp I sit in for it, but the dopamine is still high. That's the dopamine still high one. Fourth Wing, I'm genuinely excited. I know it's going to be good. That's pretty much all I need to say about it. This is, you can't see it very well, but this is the Warcraft archive book. It's a bunch of stories that are in the lore of World of Warcraft. I bought it because Jared wanted me to read it. As much as he wants me to read it, I think it could have the potential to sit on my TBR for a decade, if not forever, because I don't know if he would actually let me get rid of it. It's basically his book at this point, not mine. Ooh, Starsight. Genuinely excited. I don't know if I would bump this one up any higher. I think I would if it was closer to me having finished the first one, but that was quite a while ago. So excitement levels are dropping. We're just going to be genuinely kind of excited about it. Ooh, the 5th season, and this is the trilogy because I have all 3 of them. I'm keen for it. Again, it's a fantasy series, and the other N.K. Jemisin that I've read, which is The City We Became, that's what it was called. I really didn't like that one, so I'm worried. We Hunt the Flame. I've heard nothing but fantastic reviews about this one. Like, there's no confusion in how people feel about it, and so for that reason, I'm genuinely excited to get to it. Look, The Way of Kings strategically is being placed in I'll get to it when I get to it, because the way I see it, I have many other fantasy series that I need to get to. I have a suspicion that I will like The Way of Kings very much, but it is going to be a 10-book series, and there are currently only, 4, maybe 5 of them out? And I know myself enough to know that if I start to read them and I have to then read the ones that are coming out as they're coming out, I will need to then reread the rest of the series as that goes on to remember what happens, because frontal lobe no worky sometimes. And so I'll get to it when I get to it, because I want more of them to be out by the time I'm reading them. It's strategic. More Robin Hobb. We'll get to her when we get to her. The Priory of the Orange Tree. Moving on. I Torch Against the Night by Sabata here. I enjoyed the first one quite a bit, and it's just been that I haven't prioritized getting back to it. I think I liked it enough to keep going with the second one. If I like the second one, I'll keep going with the third one. But if I didn't own the second one, I probably wouldn't read it. Like, I wouldn't go out of my way to get it, if that makes sense. All right, we are so close to the end. We'll go rapid fire because I've been here for way too long. Fortuna Sworn. I'm very far behind, but I'm genuinely kind of excited because the hype when this came out around TikTok was insane and I couldn't find it. Beyond the Shadows is the last book or the second book. I actually don't know the order of which they are. Of Shadow's Edge, so he can go and sit here in the sitting on my TBR for a decade, because it probably will. The Collected Schizophrenias. Genuinely kind of excited. I don't think it's quite at the level of like inject it straight into my veins. Like, I don't think I'm chomping at the bit to get to it, but it's pretty close. Like, if there was an in-between category, that's where it would sit. Everything You Are Looking For is in the library. Also very, very excited to get to this one. I'm going to do these next 2 together because they're in the same series, and they are the League of Gentlewomen Witches, which I'm gonna say I'm keen. I like the premise of it. And also the Wisteria Society of Lady Scandals, which I think is the first one or the second. I don't know which one's first and which one's second, but they're equal in my brain. I Who Have Never Known Men, I'm genuinely kind of excited about, because I think there's been a lot of like recent hype going around lately for it that I've seen. And somewhat anticlimactically, we actually have Charlotte's Web as the last book. I picked this up from a little book library. I'll get to it when I get to it. It wasn't like a I need to read this kind of thing. It's a I want to read this at some point in my life, and it's here, and so I will pick it up while I'm here. And that concludes ranking my TBR for 2024. I can now see which books I will gravitate directly towards, and like looking at them in the list, it makes so much sense. Those are the books that I would pick up next to read. And so I will instead make an active choice to pick up maybe something from the I'll get to it when I get to it category. Maybe try and break through some of my fear of starting new fantasy series. If there is a book on here, like I said, that you think that I should prioritize, please let me know. Help me build the dopamine back in my brain for some of these books that I know I have been excited for, because I know I was excited about them in the past. Otherwise I wouldn't have bought them. I wouldn't have spent my monies on buying the books if I wasn't excited to read them. So please help me rediscover that purpose. If you're still here, many thanks to you. Thanks for sticking around for this fun little activity. I hope that you enjoyed. I hope you're having a fantastic day or night or whatever time it is where you are in the world, and I will hopefully see you next week. Goodbye.